Okay class, as I said before, today we will discuss about fantasy stories. So fantasy stories is a stories that classified as narrative text. So does anyone know why fantasy stories classified as narrative text? Yes, please.
Because fantasy story has a function to entertain the readers.
Correct. So just to be clear, fantasy stories has a function to entertain the readers. Entertaining readers means that to keep their interesting and amused. It doesn't necessarily to being funny, but it can be captivating or educational. People are more likely to read a content that is not dry and boring. Okay, so there are several things that distinguish fantasy stories from another stories. The first is the definition of the stories itself, and the second one is the characteristics. Okay, please open your book, page 71st, or you can see on the screen view. As you can see, the definition is almost the same with the narrative text. The difference is that this fantasy stories is an essay made by someone by relying on one's imagination or imagination in which there will be various types of stories, but the function is still the same. It's to
entertain.
That's right. So go to the second one. The second one is the characteristics of fantasy stories. There are 4 characteristics in fantasy stories. The first is open ideas stories, the existence of unique figure, the various types of background, and the last one is using fictitious properties. Open idea means that the fantasy stories has no boundaries in reality. That way, the writers can be more open in developing stories according to their wishes. An example, in fantasy stories that take supernatural, science fiction, mystical, future themes, and so on. And the second one is using various backgrounds. What does that mean? Can anyone answer? Yes, please.
As far as I've read in books, fantasy stories use a variety of settings to build the fantasy feel of the story.
Correct. For example, in the Harry Potter series, the setting of that series is in the wizarding world. It means that the characters will or can use their magic powers or can go to the past. Next is the existence of unique figure. For example, in the Narnia movie, there is a character that in the human form, but he has a sheep legs. And the last one is having fictitious properties. Can someone give an example? Yes?
Magic broom?
That's right. All objects that are not commonly used in real world and are imaginative are fictitious properties. All right. So those are the characteristics of fantasy stories. Any questions so far? Is that clear? Okay. For the generic structure, it's still the same with the narrative text. There are orientation that contains good. So it contains the introduction of the story or the character that exists in the story. After that, conflict. In these sections, we'll begin problems that appear and being the core of this story. And after that is resolutions. Good. In this section, we'll explain the way out to solve the problems and have a sense of curiosity about the ending of the story. And the last one, of course, the ending. The ending part of the fantasy stories, there will be a possibility of a happy ending or a sad ending. Alright, that's all about the fantasy stories. Any question? Is that clear? Okay, if there is no question, to deepen your understanding about the material, you have to search on the internet about fantasy stories. That you have to identify the characters, genre, and the ending.
Sir, what does the ending mean?
You just write down the ending of the film or the movie. So it can be happy ending or sad ending. Understood? Okay. The task is individual and starting by now.